Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. If you're new, my name is Sarah. Welcome. So today we are going to use up some of my Georgia candy roaster. Ooh, if you didn't see the last video, that's what this is. I had one that I had to process immediately. And so I have a bunch of squash puree that I need to use. So I thought we could try making a new recipe together. We're going to make a butternut squash manicotti. I am in the process of getting water boiling to boil our manicotti. So while I'm doing that, I thought I would show you what I did to process the squash. All right. So I am just looking to see if there's anything I think I need to worry about here on the exterior. And I think we are good. So I'm just going to cut this in half, get our seeds scooped out, and these will go on a roasting pan. Oh, there we go. Oh, I do see some damage right here. Right there. So we'll cut that section out. I think I'm going to scoop it first. I don't know. It's just kind of a hole. But anyway. So you guys, I did want to mention these Georgia candy roasters, they are fully mature squash. So their seeds, these are viable seeds. I could get them rinsed off. They're a little bit slimy, so they might need to ferment where you just put them in water for a day or two and all that slimy coating would come off. But you could save the seeds if you wanted to. Now, I'm not going to because my butternuts and my Georgia candy roasters were pretty close together, and I think there's a very good chance that there was some cross-pollination going on. But if you bought a winter squash from the grocery store, you could save those seeds too. So just something to think about, maybe a way to get some extra food out of your food. Save some of it for next year and plant it. I've got my big sections of Georgia candy roaster here. So I am just going to drizzle them with a little bit of oil. And I'm going to grab another piece of foil to pop on top of them. If you're wondering about this, I just don't have an available rimmed baking sheet at the moment. So in case anything were to run, I kind of made myself a rim with some foil here. We are going to cover this because we're not looking to brown this squash. We just want to get it nice and tender so that we can puree it up. So this is going to roast for about 20 minutes. Then we're going to take the foil off and roast it for another 15 to 20 minutes. And if it needs more time, we can give it that. But about 40 minutes should give us a nice tender squash. Into the oven. While our water's coming to a boil, I'm going to get going on some other ingredients for our pasta. This recipe calls for Italian sausage, which I don't have. And I had a really hard time finding. I can't have corn if you're new here. And almost everything I found had corn syrup in it. So that was a no-go for me. And I was going to have to go to a special store. So I thought I'm just going to use the breakfast sausage. I think it will really go well with the winter squash flavor. So I guess we're going to find out. We just want to brown this up, get it out of this packaging. Get it nice and brown and crumbled. Y'all, if you don't have one of these meat chopper tools, it is my favorite. Because I'm using breakfast sausage, I think there's a few extra things I would like to add to this. I'm going to add a little bit of sage, probably just about half a teaspoon. I also really like a little bit of heat to contrast the sweetness of the squash. So we're going to add some red pepper flakes. I don't really have an amount on this one, just whatever you like, whatever your heat preference is. And once this is cooked up, we're also going to add a small onion to it. And so I think at that point, I'm also going to add some garlic as well. If you guys happen to be new here, we're gluten-free in our house. And a couple of months ago, our local grocery store was doing some remodeling. And so all of the gluten-free section practically was on clearance. And so these are normally about $5 a box. And I was able to snag a few boxes for like $2.50, which was awesome. But when I went looking for a squash, like a winter squash manicotti, there was a butternut squash manicotti recipe on the Jovial website using these noodles, which I thought was amazing. Our sausage is almost done, and so I am going to add in that small onion and a few cloves of garlic, and we'll get those sauteed up until they're just nice and tender. For our manicotti, we want to salt our boiling water really well. I've heard it said you want your water to taste like seawater when you're boiling pasta. And our directions say to only do 4 manicotti at a time for 4 minutes. One of my manicotti is broken. That's a little sad. Our recipe says to spread our manicotti out on a kitchen towel. I'm assuming this is so it doesn't stick to each other. I think that this will probably depend on whatever sausage you use, but I knew that this breakfast sausage was pretty fatty, and so I'm going to be able to just use the fat from the breakfast sausage. But the original recipe calls for, let me think, 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And then it calls for 3 tablespoons of flour. I am using oat flour to keep this gluten-free. I'm going to get that mixed in and let it cook a little bit to cook off any raw flavor it has. And then we'll add our almond milk. Now, I'm going to link the original recipe for you guys, but this recipe is not dairy-free as written. I need it to be, so we're using the fat from the sausage. We're using dairy-free milk to make our sauce. I have dairy-free Parmesan cheese, and I'm also using a dairy-free cream cheese instead of the mascarpone that it calls for in the filling. But if you don't need to be gluten-free, you can easily use gluten-free. If you don't need to be dairy-free, you can easily use the regular old ingredients that you normally would and that are called for in the original recipe. I added our 3 cups of almond milk to this, and now we're just going to wait for it to come to a simmer and thicken up before we add our Parmesan cheese. I did want to mention here, because I am going to link the original recipe below, I am altering this a little bit. It actually calls for tomatoes and it's more of a rose sauce. I added a little bit more flour, about a tablespoon extra, and I went with an extra cup of almond milk, so we'd have about the same quantity of sauce. But number one, personally, I didn't think tomatoes sounded super appealing with butternut squash, Georgia candy roaster. I just didn't really care for the idea of that flavor combination. But also, this time of year, I'm dealing with seasonal allergies. And if that's you too, I have a hard time eating tomatoes this time of year. They just have too much histamine along with the seasonal allergies, and so I have to cut back. I am going to want to taste this to adjust any seasonings if we need it, but I figure we probably need to add our Parmesan first and really get an idea of what it tastes like all together before we start adding salt and pepper and things like that. While our sauce is thickening up, we can move on to our filling. So this recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of mascarpone cheese. We're going to use dairy-free cream cheese that I can get at Trader Joe's. And for me, this is all an experiment, but I have had really good luck with this cream cheese in the past, and so fingers crossed. So after the cream cheese, we need our pureed squash. The recipe calls for about a 1¼ pound butternut squash. I had already pureed up almost 4 pounds worth of this Georgia candy roaster. And so I looked up how much puree to weight on a squash. And it said for every pound of squash, you get about a cup of puree. So we need about 1¼ cup of our pumpkin here. Georgia candy roaster, butternut, whatever you have. And honestly, if you don't have a garden and your own squash, you could probably just buy a can of pumpkin at the store and not have to go through the roasting process yourself. I'm all for saving time and cutting corners where you can. And that would definitely be a step that would save you quite a bit of time. All right. If you have never had Georgia candy roaster and you've thought about maybe growing it, or maybe you can find it somewhere at like farmers markets or something, it is just so silky and smooth, the consistency of it. And it's so sweet. I like it a lot. All right. 1 egg, 3/4 cups of Parmesan. I have the dairy-free Parmesan. And then we're going to add some salt and pepper. Most of our seasoning is from the sausage in our sauce. We're going to try this, you guys. I've actually never used the whisk attachment on my immersion blender, but I thought it might work here and be an easier thing to clean up. Ooh. I'm going to be a mess, y'all. In fact, I think I'm going to grab an apron because it is flinging stuff everywhere. Maybe I should have used a bigger bowl. All right. Countertops can be cleaned, but I don't want to have to go change my clothes. Oh, I think we're good. I think I'm going to have a shower, but I think our pumpkin mixture is all mixed up well. Just going to clean myself up here a little bit, you guys. In my hair. Use a bigger bowl. Our sauce is nice and thickened up, so we're going to add about 1/2 cup of Parmesan. We'll just let this cook until that's all nice and melted in. I'm going to give this a taste and see if it needs any more seasoning. Ooh. It's really good. I think it could maybe use a little bit more pepper, but I think it's going to go really good with our squash. So now we can assemble our manicotti. Before we can assemble our manicotti, we need to get our filling into a bag. I'm hoping that this bag I have is going to work. I don't actually have any like pastry bags, you know, for like frosting and stuff. And every single Ziploc style bag I have has a bottom that's just not a nice clean corner. So this might be a little bit interesting, but we'll just see how it goes. All right, I cut a corner off of this. We'll see how this goes. Oh, see, it made like two holes because of the way the corners are built. I'm not sure this is gonna work well, but we will figure it out. I think what I may need to do is get some frosting bags. All right, there is a little connector right here. I'm gonna see if cutting that open will help. It just makes our hole significantly larger. Nope. This is gonna be difficult, y'all. We're gonna get it filled. I think I might just be better off using this little egg spoon. Oh, it's coming out the other end. Just a little more in that other end. Well, there we go, you guys. That might not be the easiest way to fill a manicotti, but since my bags don't work quite right, I think this is going to be the best way to do it. So I am just going to go through and fill the rest of these manicotti with this little bitty egg spoon. It took a little work, but all the manicotti are filled, and so now we are going to top it with our sauce. I had a little bit of the filling left over, and I didn't want to waste it, and so I actually mixed it into the sauce. Probably about a quarter cup, not a whole lot, but I figured that was probably the best thing to do with it. So just thought I would share that with you guys in case you make this and encounter the same thing. With the almond milk, the sauce is a little bit darker than you would normally expect from an Alfredo, but it tastes really good. My package of manicotti had an uneven number of manicotti, which I found interesting. I've never encountered that before. So I did want to tell you guys, I made a mistake. Not really a mistake, but I just didn't follow the recipe. I accidentally put some of my Parmesan into the filling, and it was really for the top. And so I have some dairy-free mozzarella, and I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of it on top because baked pasta should always have some kind of cheese on top, shouldn't it? Not a lot, but just a little. There we go. Now we're going to cover this with foil and pop it into a 350-degree oven for 40 minutes. After the 40 minutes, we'll take the foil off and let it cook for about 5 more. I'm doing all of the dishes while my manicotti is baking, and I just drained the water from my pot. I found the odd man out manicotti noodle. So I won't besmirch the name of Jovial. They didn't give me an odd number of manicotti. I just missed one when I pulled them out of the pot. It looks really good, you guys. All right, let's dish up some of this manicotti and see how it is. It looks good. And it smells delicious. I did let it cool. I did let it cool for about 5 minutes. So So we'll see how this is. This is really good. It's sweet and creamy. I do like it with the breakfast sausage. I think it would be a different flavor profile with the Italian sausage, but I really like it like this. All of the substitutions worked well, so I'm really happy about that. So this is a winner. And I have so much squash, so we'll probably be making this multiple times over the course of the next several months. So yay, yay for winners. So thanks for hanging out with me today, you guys. I will link the original recipe down below. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.